Mind Map Healing webinar, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And you can see that it's a workshop. It's hosted by Christiana Davidson. The dates are September 3, 10, and 17, 3 consecutive Sundays. The time is 9 to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with breaks. We wanted to do it early in the morning so people from different time zones can avail themselves of this seminar. And the fee is $1,995. However, register now and you will get a $495 discount, so you will save yourself that money and therefore only pay $1,500 for a chock full of psychotherapeutic education and processing. So for those of you who've been sitting on the fence about healing from narcissistic abuse, please take advantage of this. This is going to be really, really interesting, and we're going to take a deep dive into how to identify and dismantle your old blueprint that led to your abuse, how to stop the repetitive patterns from ruining the rest of your life, how to set boundaries to foolproof yourself against narcissists, and how to be the cause of a better outcome for part 2 of your life. So, those of you who would like more information, you can always call the Psychological Healing Center and enroll that way. You can email me. If I don't have you on my mailing list, get on it so that I can send you the flyer and the information. And with this, you're going to get the Mind Map video series, the PDF of the book, and a journal. So we've got you covered. And the main thing is that healing is a process, and it doesn't have to be a lengthy process that takes years and years. As many of you know me quite well. I'm not a fan of talk therapy, endless, meandering, no plan kind of therapy. So the mind map is your yellow brick road to your pathway to healing. So I'm going to go over it for the millionth time, because I always do on every episode, and I've been doing this since 2013, I believe, October, so that's almost 10 years. We've got to have a nice anniversary party, okay? And Tony, I want to thank you personally for being here and supporting me and being the great friend that you are, and the tech support, and just doing it all, because that's what Tony does. He does it all. Yeah, and he's not a narcissist, by the way. On the contrary, he's kind and generous and a wonderful human being. So just had to put that out there. Okay, so this is serious, because if we do not heal from narcissistic abuse, we do what I call the WTF. You could see it right there on the screen, the WTF, the what the Freud. And what is the what the Freud? It's a repetitive pattern that you blueprinted from your family of origin, and you play it again and again into your life, into the next generation, and you continue the cycle of buying into all the lies and misperceptions and misconceptions that the narcissist sets you up to buy into. And why is this going on? Because, again, you've been blueprinted with the notion that this is normal. And guess what? It's not normal. So you're not crazy. You've been made crazy. But the sick part of it is you don't even know that you've been made crazy, because you think you are crazy. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? I hope. So that's how sneaky this thing is. It flips on you, and then you begin to question your sanity, and you begin to question who you are and what you did wrong. And this is perfectly the way the narcissist likes it to be, because better you should attack yourself than to see that there could be anything wrong with them, because there's really nothing wrong with them, correct? I mean, these are wonderful people who have your back and know better and can direct you, and I'm being very, very facetious. I hope you could tell. So let's run through the mind map so that you can get a sense of childhood wounds that live behind narcissism, okay, and live behind the people who are trapped into narcissistic, abusive relationships and attract them and can't seem to get out of them. So let's look at panel 1, and my panels are meant as metaphors, and every time I look at them I see something different. So today I see the darkness in the background and the light at the center, and I believe that you are the light. I believe that the shadows that have eclipsed over your mental health and have eclipsed your ability to grow properly and manifest the best of your best have been eclipsed because of the unconscious forces and the unconscious messages and abuses and neglects that you've endured. And once we can identify them and clear them out of the way, then you will begin to grow again and connect back to your light. So what are these abuses and neglects that create narcissism? So we've got to understand that narcissism it's predicated on an injury to the self. Okay, so in a perfect world, we've got nurturing primary caregiver, usually mom. We've got a nurturing father who supports the family and supports the mother and the child, or a secondary caregiver, and there's a proper family structure that gives what Dr. John Bowlby refers to as I call them the psychological nutrients. So Dr. John Bowlby would refer to them as the essential elements that are needed to form a healthy human psyche. And it really makes sense. Just look at some of these animal kingdom movies and you can't deny nature. What are the mother cubs doing? They're licking their babies, and they're setting boundaries for their babies, and they're protecting them, and they're keeping them warm, and they're playing with them, and they're looking at them in the eyes. And so it's the same thing: eye contact, skin contact, attunement, mirroring, being there for assessing what your baby needs in order to be connected to you. Because the more you're connected with your infant, the more your infant's brain wiring starts to form. Remember, the mind and the body are connected, and these neural pathways start to develop, and then they start to flourish, and then they can be translated into other healthy relationships. But if there is a mother-infant disconnect or father-infant disconnect or any kind of severe trauma or neglect, okay, because there are acts of omission, which is what the parents don't do for their children, and then there are acts of commission, what they do against their children, and we're going to have to consider both because they're both childhood wounds. These are the things that create those shadows. And then with the disconnection and the development of the disconnection in the form of the parents putting their own needs before the child, which is what I see as the system gone wrong and the creation of the narcissistic system. So let me say that again. The parents put their own needs before the needs of the child. So the system basically flips. So instead of the priority being the child, it's all about the parent. And instead of the parent nurturing the child, they're vampiring the child to nourish them and mirror them and fulfill on their needs and agendas, and it becomes a really big mess. So can you begin to see how these injuries occur and how the defense mechanisms that are supposed to form into healthy defense mechanisms, which are defense mechanisms that self-regulate the psyche and soothe the psyche and keep out the bad and let in the good, get compromised. Okay, so when we're looking at a narcissistic injury, it can come from a few directions. So one form of narcissistic injury is when a child is neglected. Okay, so usually it's in the form of the emotional needs of the child are neglected because the child has to, in essence, look after the emotional needs of the parent. Now, it may be that the emotional needs are neglected, but the child might still have a lot of needs fulfilled. They may have nice clothes and nice toys and nice schooling and nice home and so on. It's just that there's a real emotional deprivation going on. And not only that, but then the child has to perform to fulfill the parent's needs. And again, the system is flipped because it should be the parents that attune to the child, not vice versa. And the worst part of it here, I'm talking about the spoiling, smothering part, is that now the child is spoiled and smothered and groomed to fulfill on the parents' needs, and then there's no earnership. So the child doesn't earn their great test score because the parent might even do the homework for the child, or might say something like, don't worry about doing well in school. You're going to inherit the family business anyway, and don't worry about that because Dad's got it all locked up for you, and you're going to be the president, and he's going to just write you a paycheck. But in return, and that could be anything. I've seen a lot of very, very horrible deals here. In return, you've got to be our little slave. In return, you've got to take care of us when we're old and sick, even though we didn't take care of you emotionally. So this is where it turns. The other is, again, the put downs. So it could look like little Johnny. You're an amazing child, but you stupid idiot. You forgot to do what Mom and Dad said. So it comes with praise and put down. So one of the aspects of narcissism is splitting. So when the good child becomes the bad child and then becomes the good child again and the bad child again, according to what the parents are doling out to the child, it becomes the parents' world and not the child's world. And so it's all revolving around pleasing the parent and not forming a sense of self that's going to help the child grow and separate and individuate. So what is separation and individuation is when a child becomes developmentally able to start to draw away from the parents and build their own nest, so to speak, and their own life, and in a healthy family structure. Of course, they come back to visit and they come back to enjoy the family. However, they're now self-sufficient. So in a narcissistic family, there's always that toxic tie, and parents don't really like when children individuate and separate because that means that they have their own sense of self, and that's not a good thing for a narcissistic mother or father, because what is the most important thing in this narcissistic structure? It's power and control. And if you lose power and control over your children, then the narcissistic parent feels very out of control and goes into a mode of anger, perhaps, because now they don't have the ability to manipulate the child any longer. And so then they can become downright nasty and degrading and devaluing. And then comes that other phase that you've heard me talk about a lot, called the demean, the devalue, and the destroy. Okay, so once we get into the work, we've got to identify who done it, what happened, what are the injuries, were you spoiled and smothered, were you emotionally neglected and ignored, were you only valued for who you are and not for, or were you only valued for what you do and not who you are? So we've got to look at all of those things, because that horrible blueprint is now a setup for your what the Freud. Okay, so this seminar and all the work that I do and my team does is about breaking the multi-generational cycle of abuse and setting it straight so that we don't continue the what the Freud, we don't continue the old blueprint. It's just that we have to dig in there. We can't just say, snap, let's just go into the future, and snap, let's just forget about the past and move forward, because from the work that I do with people and the people on the team, the work that we do at the Psychological Healing Center is centered on delving into the past, because you can't move forward until you move backward. But, again, we're not going to spend years and years of analysis. On the contrary, in the webinar, we spend one weekend, on panels 1, 2, and 3, where we're really looking at the cause and the source. So we're looking at that wound, and then we're looking at the reaction to the wound, which is usually a lot of dysregulation and a lot of the amygdala, which is the primitive brain, reacting to what happened at the causal level. And then we look at the encoding, the poor encodings that come out of the system gone wrong and the bad blueprint, which sound like I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not smart enough, I'm not anything that I would be proud of, and it's all my fault. Okay, so we've got to bust this horrific game of life which you were set up to play. So this is what I call you're at the effect of. So instead of being the cause of in a narcissistic system, you're not really raised to be causal, you're raised to be a sheep and a follower. And so in order to foolproof yourself against being a victim of narcissistic abuse, you've got to understand what happened. Why is it that I believe this about myself? Why am I emotionally dysregulated? Why is it that I keep picking these relationships that are so familial and familiar? Why is it that I have poor defenses and I keep letting these people into my life? These are some of the questions that you're going to be delving into. And then, of course, you're going to be journaling this so that you can have basically a storyboard of your emotional, psychological life. And what I want to emphasize is the word psychological, because there are two kinds of logics. There's the logic that's logical, 1 + 1 is 2, and that logic. And then the psychologic, which is the logic of the psyche. And the psyche has its own logic because it's not the linear kind of logic that the more logical, the kind of regular logic that I'm referring to. The logic of the psyche is deep and dark, and it makes associations, and it's unconscious, and it has sort of like a force of its own, and these unconscious forces, if not brought to the conscious, rule you. So I think that's a great rule of thumb, that whatever remains unconscious has a grip on you, and the minute you make it conscious, it no longer has power over you. So if you know what's going on, you don't have to think and feel that you're at fault here, because again, I'm telling you that there are forces way before you were born that set you up to be this way, okay? And it's just a good idea to spend 3 weekends, or however you want to do it, individual therapy or webinar, however you want to do it. It's a great idea to dismantle the old blueprint so that you are not a fool. So really, in order to foolproof yourself against narcissists, you have to unfool yourself, okay? Because the healthier you are, the more knowledgeable you are, the more the unconscious forces are conscious, and the less you will be a victim to lies, gaslighting, misperceptions, belief systems that really don't belong in your life. And this is a call-in show, everybody, so please feel free to call in, and let's ask that question about how to foolproof yourself against narcissists, because, you know, I'll just, normal is a very general word, but most people who are somewhat empathic don't go through life thinking that other people are out to get them necessarily, or lying to them, or trying to trick them, or trying to use them and manipulate them. So I like to use an example from my own life, and I'll explain a little bit more in depth and how I use it in my work. So I don't think that anybody is necessarily out to get me, let's say. So let's say I go to a restaurant and I leave my purse on the chair, and I might do that because I'm thinking I wouldn't take somebody's purse, so why would they take mine? So what I do is I positively project on others that they have similar ethics and morals and standards and thinking similar to me. But that in and of itself, I think, is an example of positive projection. So what I'm doing in this particular example is I'm projecting on others that they're like me, okay? And so if I project that onto others and they're not like me, then I'm going to be shocked that my purse was stolen. Like, what? Who could do such a thing? What's, you know, that's sick. That's okay. So we've got to understand that in a sense, we've got to confront our own narcissism, because projection is an assumption, right? Okay, I'm assuming. So I'm assuming that other people think like me. I'm assuming that other people act like me. And so there's an interesting area where I may very well be fooled, okay? So the first line of defense is to understand that not everybody is like you, okay? Empaths and narcissists play two different games of life. I've spoken about it on several episodes. One game of life is love and intimacy, and the other game of life is power and control. So I think we have a call, so let's pick it up from there. Hi, thank you so much for calling in.
Hello?
Yeah, hello. And what name would you like me to call you by?
I'm Joe.
I'm sorry?
Joe?
Joan? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So what is going on in your life that you can identify with that is relatable to the topic of foolproofing yourself against narcissists?
Well, I am 32 years old.
Okay.
And I am living in a house. My father is doing tax evasion.
He's doing, I'm sorry, accusations?
Tax evasion. Tax?
Like tax evasions. Tax evasions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, yes. Tony.
Tax evasion.
Okay, I've got my handy translator here. Okay, tax evasions. Yes, go ahead.
And he wants me to be. He wants to put the house as his tax returns.
Okay. So how does he have? So how has he gotten you involved in his tax evasions? Why are how how are you affected by this?
I live there. I live in a different house.
Okay.
He lives in another house. He lives in another house, and he wants to put my house as a tax evasion site.
Okay, so can you hear the control and the manipulation? I mean, we were just talking about power and control, yes?
Yes,
Okay, so logically, what do you think about this?
I don't have enough power to get my own house,
Understood. Okay,
and I am getting a new job, new workplace,
I see. Okay.
and he knows the people there.
So this is complicated. Yes, this is a lot of power and control over you. Yes?
Yes, complete control and
Okay.
power.
Okay. So you use the word complete. Nobody can have complete control. Okay? Unless you're, I don't know, maybe behind bars and um okay, so what I want to bring up here is we've got to find your power points. Okay? Now you are working, yes?
Yes, I have one job, but there is a better job.
Okay. Tell me about your job and the better job, and does your father have any power and control over your boss or your work or anything like that?
Yeah, my old job is very boring.
I'm sorry, I didn't
It's
catch
boring.
that. Your what? I'm sorry.
My old job,
Your own job?
the
Okay.
old job, it's very boring.
Very boring. Okay. Okay. So
Boring. Yeah.
so so the question is, how much power does your father have over your boss? Does he have control over the company that you work for?
He has power over the new company.
Okay, so this is a tricky situation, and obviously we're not going to solve it right now, but I want you to start looking at your points of power, okay? And the quicker you can start to separate and individuate, and in this case, financial would be very important, even if it's a starting of $1, okay, that is all yours and has nothing to do with him and is born out of something else that you do other than what he has control over. So you've got to start somewhere, because it seems like, when people are trapped, they're not only trapped physically and financially, they're also trapped emotionally. So the belief system could be something like, I'll never have the ability to escape. I'm too stupid to escape. I'm kind of going to panel 3 now, the negative core beliefs, and usually it has a lot of messages in there about never and entrapment and I'm at the effect of, and there's no hope for me. And see how the panel 3 is kind of like a dark and dismal and hopeless DNA strand. You see that?
Yeah, I am too lazy to escape.
You're what?
Lazy.
You're too lazy. Okay, so this is one of the core negative beliefs that you've acquired, probably through messages from your father or your mother or both, to keep you dependent. Okay, so to foolproof yourself against this system gone wrong and the power and control is we've got to identify how you've been, in essence, brainwashed into thinking that you're lazy and powerless. Because when you're convinced, there's a, what was that? Okay. So there was a psychologist, Martin Seligman, and he talked about learned helplessness. And when we finally have this sense that there's nothing we can do about anything, we have no agency at all, we become helpless and depressed, and we give up hope. And that's exactly where a narcissist wants you to be. Gotcha. You're in my pocket. You're a helpless creature, and now I get to control and manipulate. So do you see that the first line of work is to really, really dissect where these beliefs came from and how they ingrained in you and how they're controlling you? Because he's not only controlling you from the outside, he's controlling you here. And that's what I refer to as the psychovirus, the belief systems, the thoughts, the blueprint that got in there that's giving you these messages to keep you in a very locked down, hopeless place. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes,
this is very important, because no matter what we do, if we don't get rid of this hopeless, I call it this like psychological prison that we're in, I don't care if the knight in shining armor comes and rescues you and takes you away from this. Inside your head, you're still trapped in there. And then you're going to do it again. You're going to do it in the next relationship and the next relationship. And this is my point, is that even if we have all of these techniques of rescuing you and giving you a bunch of money to free you, or even a new job, it doesn't matter, because until you're out of this psychological jail, you will most likely, repeat this in the next and the next and the next. And that's the tragedy of this blueprint gone wrong and the narcissistic system. Okay, so I want you to start working from the inside out.
Okay.
Okay, makes sense? So I want you to see that the trap is something that was laid foundationally down for you. And even if it's just $1, where from your own, I'll call it from your own cause, okay, your own volition, your own energy, your own creativity, if you can generate that $1 without your father, and you could say, oh, look, I did that. I sold a flower, and that flower, I made $1, and I put this in my piggy bank called I'm the cause. I'm the generator, okay? I'm not at the effect of. And I really literally mean even $1, because you see, once you start getting that that success, just a tiny bit of success, then it creates a kind of like a hole in the system, okay? And then you could start slowly extricating yourself from it, knowing that it's not a 100% trap. You might think it is, but it's not a 100% trap. There's always a little escape route, and I'm suggesting the escape route starts over here, dismantling these negative cores, and then proving to yourself with one single dollar that you generate on your own, and then one private piggy bank that you put in to your own piggy bank that your father does not know about and cannot see and manipulate and control, so that you can get the party started on separating and individuating, at least in the financial area, and psychologically so. Okay, so I want you to think about what I'm saying And you know, I've got this seminar that's starting in September, led by Christiana Davidson. And I think that for those of you, including you, who are trapped in this system that feels like a double dungeon and feels so hopeless and helpless, that the work is really to dismantle this prison, psychological prison, so that you're not in it anymore. And then you could see a little bit more light in your next steps and so on. Because if your dad is doing tax evasion and you're affiliated with your father, then I can only imagine that it could cause you chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. Because if you're tied to his money or they come after him and now your name is on something also, it's not a good deal for you, is it?
No, it's not. Yeah.
It's not, okay? So it's dangerous for you. So that you have to understand that even though you might be receiving certain benefits, in the long run, it's not a benefit because you end up paying the price. And if you're affiliated with him and your name is on something and his name is on it, then guess who they're going to also investigate, correct?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
the government just wants to get the taxes and the money. So if they can't get all of it from him, then they're going to come after you and see. So you see, at the end of this bad game, you're the one that's going to be thrown under the bus.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I think that we could begin now to play that better game of life of getting conscious. So, number one, if you don't have a copy of my book, get it. The PDF is free. You could download it. And number two, if you're ready for the webinar, please register for it. You have the phone number there. I think if you scroll down, you could reach me, Dr. Judy at psychologicalhealingcenter.com. There's my number, and we can register you. And you don't have to be at the effect of these narcissistic systems of power and control, okay? So I hope I hear from you in a better way, and that you can start to see even a little bit of a pathway out of this control and power. Okay?
Yes, thank you. I will register.
You're very, very welcome. My pleasure. And I think we have another
Thank
call. You're very welcome. Good night. And yes, we have another call. So hi, welcome. And what is your name, please, or a name that you want me to call you by?
Oh, hi, Myra.
Oh, hi, Maya. Thank you for calling in. And what the Freud is going on in your life in relationship to foolproofing yourself against narcissists?
Let's see. So, it's hard to kind of put it all out there like quickly. Let's see. So, I've been foolproofing myself since I was pretty little. I would say I was like the scapegoat of my family.
Okay.
And I ended up getting a job when I was pretty young and ran away from home. My dad was became physically violent. But the last caller that called, it was reminding me of my older brother. Ended up living with him, and our mom passed away, and so I actually went over there on Father's Day to use the holiday as an excuse to see how my brother was doing. And he has schizophrenia, and it's not fun, but I just wanted to go kind of see. Now I've been working on myself for a long time, and I just wanted to see how my brother was doing. But Yeah, like how they blame you for stuff. It was like crazy to see the dynamic with like all the knowledge that I have now. And my brother, he was like giving my brother, they were like smoking marijuana, I guess, which is concerning because I know that
a very bad substance for schizophrenia. I've seen personally people who have had drug induced psychosis from it and triggers of thought disorder and so on. So, okay, not a good combination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so hard to see him like with their coping mechanisms, like how they deal, like, you know, they can't talk about anything, and it's like craziness. And I stepped away a few years ago, and I can see now that the abuse it's full on my brother now. And so, and then my brother ended up going to sleep, and I was going to go home, and my dad said something like, if I die, you know, told like my brother's name and one of his flying monkeys that lives down the street to have my brother bury him in the backyard so he could collect his whatever the government assistance.
Oh, like a social security or something like that?
Yes. He's like, yeah, I told him just to bury me. I was like, why would you say that? Like, then he'll go to prison or something for that.
Of course, yes.
It's like, oh, we'll just blame it on him. And I'm like in my head, I'm like, okay, that's enough for me. And I got up and I was like, all right, I love you, Dad. I was like, give me a hug. And he was like in shock, like he couldn't believe that after all the things he's done to our family, he couldn't believe that I wanted to give him a hug. You know, I was just trying to like kill him with kindness, and stepped away. And I just keep having all these like thoughts of like, yeah, just how mean he is to him. And
yes,
you know, he's 30, he'll be 38, and he weighs like 500 pounds, and
your
legs,
brother?
he has lymphedema in his lip.
Wait,
yeah,
back
my
up.
brother.
Your brother's 500 pounds?
Yeah.
And he's 38,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the kill with kindness, yeah, I understand that we want to wake them up and show them the contrast. Look at you, look at me, look at the difference. Usually I find that kindness doesn't really do much.
Yeah, exactly. And like I haven't received any phone, like he just doesn't care about me, like because I'm not in his control anymore.
Right.
And
right. So, you
yeah.
know,
I mean, that's a good thing.
Okay. So look, scapegoats, you're the scapegoat who escaped. Okay, that's why, you know, it's sad and true. You're obviously in better psychological shape, it sounds like, than your brother. Yes?
Yeah.
And the more you remain in the system, the sicker you get, because that's just how it is. And so you have been working on yourself, and you're not a fool, and you understand the implications of what your father is doing and how this can completely result in a huge breakdown, and already has been with your brother. So sometimes the best place to be in a system gone wrong is out of the system. You don't want to play. You know, I used to do martial arts back in the day, and my teacher said to me, the best place to be in a fight is not there. Okay, so the best
100%.
place, right? Like don't show up, right?
Yeah.
Have the power.
Yeah.
You see, right? You want the power because you know that by having the power you have a better chance of defending, but just have the wisdom to not engage. And you obviously have the wisdom to not engage. Your brother seems weaker and less mentally hardy than you, and so the dependency and the psychosis is not allowing him to the separation and individuation that I refer to, for him to escape this system. And the best
it's
place
so
for
sad.
you.
It's crazy how one person can assert control and manipulation over an entire family, and then there's
Yep.
nothing that you can do.
Yep.
There's nothing you can do except walk away, and that's the most
And
heartbreaking
that's a
thing.
big
But
something. Wait, that's a big something that you can do. Okay, so that's not a nothing that you could do. Remember, I talk about power and control and our own power. So you have the power. You can be the cause, and you have been the cause of
yeah,
walking away. And that's something that you did. You didn't
yeah.
do.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the show, and I love listening to you.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love doing this. I've been doing it for years. And my next project is I'm working on a video. I've been working on this video for a long time. I wasn't pleased with the first attempt, but now I think I have the right production team, director and producer. I'm going into production to produce, I'm hoping, a great uh, um, video called Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And that will be for people who, let's say, don't necessarily have the desire to work one-on-one with somebody or even be in a webinar, just want to do their own private work. And I'm the guide, and I take people through to, from the wounds of narcissism through dismantling them and their effects on the psyche and morph out. So I've got a fun project ahead of me, and I hope to have that all edited.
I look forward to looking at it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep everybody posted, and yeah, it's just I guess this is my work in life, and I'll take it on.
Thank you, Dr. Judy. You're very much appreciated.
Oh, that is so sweet, and it means a lot to me to hear that. Thank you so much, and please let me know how you're doing.
Thank you for.
It just never feel like you did nothing. You did something big. You walked away. That's huge. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's just something that's the process. Is reminding myself that I'm not guilty. I did nothing wrong. I'm saving myself off clearly. So.
And then remember, okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And just I want to tell everybody, thank you so much for calling in. And the takeaway that I want you all listening to have is that walking away isn't doing nothing. It's a big deal, okay? A really, really, really big deal. And being the cause of having your logic as opposed to being at the effect of the psychologic and doing the work so that you don't buy into the system and then think that there's something wrong with you and so on. That's big work, okay? So are there any other calls or anything? Okay. All right, so I want to thank everybody, and please reach out. The webinar is opening for registration now, and I'll be sending out an email in the next day or two to all the people who do have my that I do have their email. And if I don't have your email and you would like to participate, please let me know what your email is so that I could send this to you. You can also call or write me. And my mission is to heal human disconnect, particularly heal the hole in the soul resulting from narcissistic abuse, which I call the abuse of apathy. Because when you're apathetic, you just don't care, you lack that empathy, your emphasis is on power and control because you no longer believe in love and intimacy. Things go really, really, really dark. And then when you don't have the empathy chip, as I put it, it's really easy to demean, devalue, destroy, use, manipulate, financially abuse, and physically and emotionally, neglect and abuse, okay? Because that's what happens when we have no empathy. There's no connection to our impact on another human being, and that is very, very dangerous. So please reach out, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to call and write, and it's always such a pleasure to be here, and I will see you next time. Good night, everyone.